Hello, everyone, and welcome to MSUFCU's Financial Education Seminar Series. We appreciate you all joining us and are excited to be here with you virtually this evening. These presentations were created with you in mind, with the intention to give financial education on a number of relatable topics to help expand your knowledge of finances. Each event will be hosted by a member of our financial education department or by one of our partners, like tonight, connecting you with resources in our community. We have a number of diverse presentations planned for you this year, and you can explore and register for them by visiting us at msufcu.org/events. Tonight's event is being recorded. You can also rewatch or share the presentation by going to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/msufcu. Tonight's recording will usually be available within about 3 weeks of the event. We will be pausing throughout tonight's presentation to address any questions submitted to the Q&A. So at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see the little Q&A function. You can click on that to submit any questions for our presenter throughout the discussion tonight, and he'll be pausing periodically to address those as we go. And there'll also be some other resources dropped into the chat, so go ahead and keep an eye on that. But just remember to put the questions through the Q&A. So I'm Therese Bacon, and I'll be your facilitator this evening. If you do have any technology issues or anything like that, you can go ahead and reach out to me directly in the chat. Hopefully I'll be able to help you with those. So let's get on to introducing our presenter tonight. We have a wonderful guest joining us to present on starting a business. So allow me to introduce our host, Jeff Hamilton, who works as a mentor with SCORE. He has decades of previous experience as a small business owner himself, as well as consulting and management in the financial services industry. Welcome, Jeff, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'll go ahead and pass it over to you now to introduce yourself to our audience, talk a little bit more about what you do with SCORE, and then we can lead right into your presentation this evening.
Fantastic. Therese, thank you very much. And welcome everybody to tonight's presentation on starting a business. Before we get in to the content, I would like to just talk a bit about what SCORE is and a little bit about my background. So SCORE is a national volunteer organization. Our mission is to help entrepreneurs and small businesses thrive. So we work with people looking to start businesses, and we work with people who have businesses, and we provide them with mentoring, education programs, and various tools to try to help you be as successful as you can be. As I said, it's a national organization. We have over 200 chapters across the country. We have 10,000 volunteers across the country. 7 of our chapters are here in Michigan. We have chapters in Southeast Michigan, Ann Arbor, Kalamazoo, Grand Rapids, Muskegon, Traverse City, and Petoskey up north. So if you are in Michigan and looking for SCORE resources, I hope that we'll have a location close to you. A little bit about myself. I've been a SCORE mentor for 9 years. I'm based in our Traverse City, Michigan chapter. And over those 9 years, I've helped over 100 small businesses and startups as they've tried to have their successful small business story. My professional background is mostly in consulting, and I also was a small business owner. My wife and I started a photography studio in suburban Chicago. We ran that for 10 years and then sold that before moving up here to northern Michigan. So with that, let me get into business here. And again, as Therese mentioned, we'll have some opportunities throughout the presentation for you to ask questions, and please feel free to ask those if you have any issues or questions about the stuff I'm about to present. Okay, so you want to start a small business? How do you get started? Typically, people have an idea, and we'll talk a little bit about what those ideas are. But mostly tonight, I want to talk about what I call feasibility assessment, which is really, I think, an important next step once you have your business idea. A lot of people, when they're starting a business, recognize that there's going to be a tremendous amount of planning and detailed planning to do. And there is. This is important. But one mistake that people sometimes make is getting too involved in extensive planning, maybe extensive research, extensive product development, before really taking a high-level look at the feasibility of the idea. And that can lead to a lot of time and a lot of money that could be better spent. Typically, after you've done a lot of detailed planning, you make kind of a go or no-go decision, and then you implement. But today, we're going to focus on this feasibility assessment. I'll talk a little bit about some of the other elements of detailed planning and implementation, but those, quite honestly, could be topics in and of themselves for a seminar series. Okay, so what is the idea? Typically, people have some product or service that they want to take to market. Maybe it's a new product. Maybe it's something that they think is better than is currently out there, or it's something that you think you can provide and produce more cheaply and get customers that way. Perhaps there's an underserved market, customers who you don't think are being well served by existing players. And there's really any number of ideas. I want to start a restaurant, a bakery, a pet care business. My family cherry jam recipe is the best that there's ever been, and I want to take that to market. We get that in Traverse City quite a bit, actually, and on and on. So there are literally untold number of ideas for a business, really just limited by your imagination and what it is you want to do. And again, most people start here with what they want to do. People usually also have some why you want to start a business. Make more money. I have a hobby that I want to turn into more of a full-time business, or I'm passionate about something. And I think that this is a product or service that would be helpful to the community. Maybe I want to be my own boss. You know, I've worked as a mechanic for 10 years, and I could have my own garage and run it better than that guy does, and make more money and set my own hours and so forth. So there's lots of reasons why. I'm going to suggest that as you're thinking through your whys, you step back a bit and take a very broad look at the objectives of why you want to own a business. And so certainly there are financial objectives, income, maybe the value of the business that you want to build, something that you could sell. And that's where people tend to focus. But there are other elements as well. Owning a business, running a business is, it can be all-consuming. It takes a tremendous amount of effort and a tremendous amount of time. And so it's important to think through how that business is going to impact other elements of your life. As a prior consultant, I like frameworks with 3 things in them, and I like alliteration. So this framework of financial, family, and future, I find helpful. And I encourage you to think about family issues as well. When you're running this business, how flexible do you want your schedule to be? How much time do you want to have to spend with your kids or your significant other? Do you want to be able to work parts of the year and not other parts of the year so you can travel? From a future standpoint, these are things like legacy. Are you interested in having a business that you could leave to your kids? Or do you have some kind of mission that drives your business? And that's what you want your legacy to be. And this exercise is not a months-long exercise. This is finding some quiet time where you can really think deeply about why you want to start a business. And it is my experience in talking to people that when they have these objectives well laid out, they provide a tremendous guidepost as you go through the process of designing your business and building out your business and making decisions about what you want your business to be, these can guide those decisions. And if you don't have these objectives laid out, you run the risk of creating a business that actually doesn't help you achieve the objectives that you want in your life. So this is, I think, a critical place to start once you have the idea. Okay, so now we get into the question everybody asks when they come to SCORE. I have an idea. Can this be a successful business? And there are a few elements of really every successful business that it somehow satisfies an unmet need in the market. You can build and run that business in a financially viable way. You have the capabilities to make it happen, whether those are your skills or financial resources or other things. And most importantly, that it helps you achieve your financial, family, and future objectives. Because if it doesn't do that, it's really not successful. You know, one other thing here, I said that people come and ask all the time, can this idea be a successful business? So spoiler alert, really any business idea can be successful. But the devil's in the details, and there can be a lot of details to work out. And so one of the things that I'm going to really advocate for is that you spend time upfront answering big questions before you spend a lot of time and money. And this is really the crux of that feasibility assessment that I was talking about. Taking some time to think through at a high level, but comprehensively, all the elements of your business to make sure that as you get into the detailed planning, that it's in fact going to satisfy your objectives. Okay, so Therese, this will be a place where I'll take a quick break and just see if anybody has any questions about the focus of what we're going to talk about or any comments on that.
Nothing has come through yet, so we can keep rolling.
Okay, I want to introduce a concept here, and we're going to spend a bit of time on this. And the concept is that of a business model. And a business model is really just that. It is a model. It is a representation of your business, a written representation. So just like a model car is the representation of the actual car that's going to be built, this is a written representation of the business that you plan to build. And it has a few key elements. First, it clearly defines what your business does and specifically identifies the customers you plan to serve. It identifies how your business is different from the businesses that are already out there. And then we start getting into some numbers. You want to do a high-level estimate of the revenue potential of your business, understand the operational capabilities you need and the costs associated with those and the costs associated with starting and running your business. Now, before we get into the details, I want to talk about a quick example because I understand that this stuff can seem almost obvious and self-evident. But let's say you wanted to start a grocery store. And there's a lot involved in starting a grocery store. You have to have a building, you have to buy equipment. Obviously, you need a lot of inventory and food and other products. Probably need to hire employees. And you could start that process, start doing a lot of planning, looking for locations. But if you don't know what kind of grocery store you want to be, you're unlikely to make good decisions about that location, the equipment, the type of product, and so forth. So here's an example, Costco and Burrit's. Now, I assume most people here have heard of Costco, nationwide grocery store and more. Burrit's is a local store up here in Traverse City. So if you're from our area, you probably know it, but probably not if you aren't. but they're two very different businesses. Costco prides itself on low prices, high volume with a lot of inventory turnover. You have to be a member. They have efficient service, at least when it's working well, and my experience is it normally does. And they have national buying power. Burrit's is almost the exact opposite of that. It's very locally focused. They focus on local producers and fresh, high-quality foods, even gourmet foods. It has a small-town feel. If you shop there very often at all, they know you. And so it's two very different businesses. They're both successful, but the way that they were designed, it's totally different. And so this is really the crux of what the business model is intended to do and to help you answer the question of the feasibility of your business. Okay, so let's go into the elements of the business model. And we're going to dive into each of these in more detail. Also, Therese does have a piece of collateral material, a handout that has this information in it. So don't feel like you need to copy all the slide information down. But these are the elements: the offerings and the value proposition that you have, the customers you serve, the relationships you have with those customers, the distribution channels you use, and then the internal operations of your business. And we're going to go into each of these in a little more detail. So value proposition is really just a fancy term for why customers will want to buy from your business, why they'll want to buy your product or service. And there are a couple of key questions you want to ask yourself. And it really gets around what the value is. What's better about what you're providing? Is it lower cost? Is there a need that it's meeting that hasn't been met? And it's important that you think about this from the standpoint of your customer. So it's not enough for you to say, this is going to be the highest quality product in the market. The answer has to be, customers want this type of quality for this reason, and I'm the one who's going to deliver that. So talking about customers, and again, a simple concept, but one that sometimes people forget to define clearly. Who does your business serve? And what are the needs and preferences of those customers? Who are your most important customers? One thing that I hear sometimes from people is, my product will be attractive to everyone. I plan to sell to anybody who's interested. And there's some value to that. It's good to have a wide range of customers who might be interested. But in general, if you think you're selling to everyone, then you're probably not meeting the specific needs of anyone. So this is a critically important element of defining your business, that identifying these customers, your ideal customers, and understanding their needs, and then offering them that better than anybody else does, is a critical element to success. Just a real quick example here. I said that my wife and I ran a photography studio. And kind of like the grocery store example, there can be lots of different types of photography studios. And we had a desire to serve customers who had a particular preference around very large images, things they would put over their fireplace, and that had lasting quality, that they could know would last, heirloom quality framing. And that's the business that we had. We didn't try to serve customers who are looking for wallet photos or for small pictures. Not that there isn't something, that there's anything wrong with that. It's just not the business we were in. Other photography studios would do that sort of work, and we'd focus on what we wanted to do and what we thought we could do best. So the next element is around customer relationships. So what type of relationship do you plan to have? Will it be a high-touch, personal type relationship? more of a mass market relationship? And how will you acquire these relationships? How will you find these customers, retain them, grow these relationships? And then a critically important thing, and we'll get into this more, and this is true of everything you define in your business. It's one of the reasons to build the model, is that you want the relationships that you have and the cost of establishing and maintaining those relationships to be consistent with your value proposition. So for example, if you go into Burrit's, you'll find that there are many more service people in there to customers than if you go to Costco. They invest in their personal customer service, and it makes sense for their business. It's expensive, but it's what they need to do. If Costco tried to do that, it wouldn't work. They'd be spending money in a way that the customers there, at least when they're at Costco, don't care about. And so you want your relationships and the way that you build those to be consistent with your value proposition. Okay, the next thing, distribution channels. Another fancy term. It really just means where are you going to sell to and service and reach your customers? And what channels appeal to your customers? So do you plan to reach them online? Will you have a physical location? There are many others. And again, how does that channel contribute to your value proposition? And are they cost effective relative to the value that you contribute? Now, for some businesses, you might sell or service through multiple channels, and you'll want to make sure that they're properly integrated so that if you're selling product online and you're also selling product in a physical store, that you can keep track of inventory in both. Okay. Final thing in the model has to do with the operations. And this really defines what your business needs to do well. A lot of times when people do some planning, they'll talk about their operations. But this is really the last element of the business model that you want to do, because it's driven by the decisions you make about your value proposition, the customers you're going to serve, the channels you're going to serve them through. And it really gets to the capabilities that you need, whether those are knowledge and skill capabilities, specific assets, types of people, equipment. And then how do you plan to acquire these capabilities? Will you provide them yourself? Will you hire people? Will you hire contractors? Maybe outsource to another firm? And again, these are important elements of the model, and different businesses have different right answers for how they're going to handle their operations. The key again being what's consistent with the type of business that you want to be. Okay. Really part and parcel of the business model is confirming some of the numbers. I often tell people that it's not complicated to start and run a business. It's hard, but it's not really complex. There is, however, a little math involved. So bear with me, please. I don't think this is overly complicated, and it's critically important as part of a feasibility assessment. So first, doing a revenue projection, really an estimate of how much money your business will generate. And there's some key questions here. For your target customers, what are they willing to pay? Do you have realistic sales volume goals? And have you considered various sources? So your product, you might sell your product, but you could also service the product. Some businesses lend themselves to recurring subscriptions. So the first order of business is understanding at a very top level the revenue potential. And let me give you just a quick example. of a simple exercise that I recommend everyone go through. For all the customer segments you plan to serve and for the products you plan to sell them, estimate the sales and the price per item, and then it's a simple multiplication and addition to figure out the revenue. So if you're selling 100 of product one to segment one at $12 a piece, that's $1,200 of revenue. You do this for all of your products and segments, and you get a total revenue estimate. And it seems simplistic, and it is. And again, not a substitute for the detailed financial planning that comes in the next phase. But it's an important tool for two reasons. First of all, it provides an early test of, is the business as you've defined it going to help you meet your financial objectives? So I'll go back to the cherry jam example. If I want to have a cherry jam business and, I think I can make 1,000 jars of jam every year, and I think I can sell them for $10 a jar. Well, there's $10,000 of revenue. Now, if my financial goal that I set out for myself is to have a $50,000 business, then something's not right here. So I should have mentioned earlier that on those financial and family and future objectives, there aren't right answers. There are only your answers. Your answer might be that you want to have a business that you make a little extra money in and you make $10,000. And in that case, this would be perfect. But if your business goal financially is you want to support yourself and your family and it needs to be a $50,000 business, well, then this is inconsistent. It's not that your answer was wrong. It's that you need to design your business differently. And this, again, really gets to the crux of doing the modeling and doing the feasibility assessment before you spend a tremendous amount of time and potentially money in detailed planning, detailed research, and so forth. Okay, now obviously, the revenues don't all flow to your pocket. Your business has costs. And so it's important to understand at a high level what those costs are going to be. And so here we want to get a shot at estimating the costs to run and to start your business. So we'll talk a little bit in more detail about these three areas: startup costs, and then two types of operating costs, fixed and variable. And as I mentioned before, these costs need to be consistent with your value proposition. Ideally, you're not taking on any costs that aren't contributing to you serving the customers you want to serve and providing the value you want to provide. And similarly, you are spending money on the things that do. Okay, so let's talk about startup costs, and there are many. These vary, obviously, based on the type of business that you want to start, but it might include buying real estate or buying a building or leasing a building and making improvements to it. Some businesses have a lot of capital equipment. You need furniture and machinery and so forth to do production. Before you open your store, it needs to have inventory. So there's this cost associated with that. You probably need to promote the store before day one. And there are myriad other expenses, whether it's lawyers or accountants, prepaid utilities, the salaries for people who help you get started. And then an important one, the investment that you make or any fees associated with the loans that you take out to get started. Operating expenses are the expenses you incur when you're running your business. And we normally think about them in two categories: variable and fixed. And the variable costs are everything that has to do with actually making your product. This obviously also varies by the type of business. So if you're manufacturing a product, all the materials that go into that are what's called cost of goods sold. If you're baking cakes, the ingredients that go in are cost of goods sold. The labor of the people who make the product is part of that. And then any costs associated with storing that inventory after you've made it. These are variable costs. And they're called variable because they change based on how much you make and how much you sell. The fixed cost is everything else. It's the rent on the building or the mortgage on the building you bought, your utilities, insurance, salaries of people who aren't producing the product, but who are there to run the business, advertising, equipment repair, all manner of other things. And the key to fixed costs is you incur these whether you sell one item or 100 items. Now, those two estimates, the revenue estimates and the cost estimates, will allow us to take a look at three simple metrics. And this is where we do get into a little bit of math. And these are, in my opinion, the three most important things to take a look at when you're doing a feasibility assessment. Again, there are all manner of financial analysis tools and detailed budgeting that you're going to want to use and do. But before you do that, these are three things that you should take a look at. So the first is something called gross margin. And here I want to focus on unit gross margin. So that is the price that you sell your product at less the cost of production. Again, very, very simple. What are you going to price it at, and what does it cost for you to make it? And the question is, when I sell my product, do I make money or lose money? And again, I know it sounds simple, but if you don't take a look at this, it's surprising how often somebody cannot realize that it costs them more to make something than they think they can sell it for to their target customers. So can you set your price high enough to cover your costs? And are there ways I can produce things more efficiently to drive those costs down? And the key here is, this is what you want to avoid. It's an old joke. I lose money on every item I sell, but I make up for it in volume. So that is not a recipe for success. You want to make sure that every time you sell a product, you're making money. The next thing gets to your total profitability. So total sales, all the product, all the pricing, less the total cost of production, and then less your fixed costs. Because remember, you have fixed costs whether you sell one item or 1,000. And so the question here is, do I sell enough to cover my fixed costs? And from the standpoint of business modeling, the real key question is, how do I design my business to have low enough administrative expenses so that when I sell what I think I'm going to sell at the price I think I'm going to sell it, that overall I make money even after my fixed costs? So one other term you might hear here is break even. And that's just another version of this. The break even is how many do I need to sell for this number to be zero? So the first 100 items that I sell a month, if those cover my fixed cost, the margin of those cover my fixed cost, then my break even is 100 sales of that item. And everything I sell after that, that's money in my pocket. So that's why this is such an important thing to understand. And then the final key metric during the feasibility phase is payback period. And this gets to more of a long-term view, because remember, you have startup costs. That's why we looked at all three of those elements of costs, startup and then the two operating costs. The startup costs are costs that you're spending, you're putting into your business before you open. So presumably at some point you want your business to be profitable enough, long enough, so that you make back that initial investment plus how much money you want to make. And so this answers the question, is all of this worth it? And this is the one that probably trips people up more than the others. Because if you don't look at the investment that you're making up front, you might not realize that the business that you've defined might take years to make that investment back. And again, that might be okay depending on what your objectives are and what your financial situation is. But it's important to know, and it's important to know before you spend a lot of time really analyzing in detail the other elements of your business. Okay, that was a lot, but that is business modeling and doing a high-level confirmation and feasibility assessment of the numbers. Now, there's something that I want to highlight about this, because I think a reasonable question is, well, so what do I do if, as I confirm the numbers, I'm not getting the answers that I want? It turns out that's a good thing. That's actually the point. The process of going through and building a business model is an iterative one. You'll go through various cycles of this. You'll set your objectives, take a first crack at the business model, confirm the numbers, and something won't look right. And again, that's the point. You go back and you change things. You change things in the model. You say, maybe I need to serve a different kind of customer, or I need to figure out a way to find more of them. I might have thought that I was going to focus my business locally in my hometown, but it just turns out there aren't enough customers there to make this work. So if that's the case, you have some choices. You can say, I'm going to expand geographically, and that's going to become one of the defining elements of my business. Or you can say, no, the most important thing to me was that I was serving the local community. But if I want to do that, I'm going to have to change something else so that it's financially viable. So that's really the point of building the business model and confirming the numbers. It goes through an iterative process. And when you're done, then you're ready to go through the detailed planning. So, Therese, here I will stop and see if there are any questions.
Nope, you must be doing a great job. No one has any questions yet.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, though, for stopping.
Okay, so just real briefly on a couple of the other items as far as when you get to the point of wanting to, in fact, make your business happen and implement it. And the things I want to just touch on briefly are funding, legal structure, whether you should build a business from scratch or buy it, your personal readiness, and partners who you should be relying on. And again, each of these topics could be the subject of a seminar series on their own. So I'm just going to touch on them very briefly. So in funding, there are a number of options. This is just a few. Personal cash reserves, your friends and family, getting a loan from a bank or a credit union, bringing in outside investors, looking for grant funding, and crowdfunding, which is becoming increasingly popular. All of these are viable. I do suggest that you focus on the first two first, your personal cash reserves and friends and family. And there's a couple reasons for that. The first is, one possibility is that you have enough funds to start your business on your own without having to rely on loans. That's an easier path, again, assuming you have the money. That is an easier path than looking for outside investment. But even if you need outside investment, bringing enough of your own personal cash demonstrates to the banks and the credit unions and investors that you're serious and that you're committed. So it's important to know, what the startup costs are of your business and what percentage of those you think you're going to be able to fund yourself. And again, like a lot of the other topics, that funding is easier or harder depending on the type of business that you're in. Some businesses just don't require as much startup capital. Legal structure. A lot of small businesses start as sole proprietors, and that's really just where you and your business are one and the same. There are various other forms of legal structures. One that we recommend most often is what's called an LLC, a limited liability company. And the main reason we recommend it is right in the name. The liability that an LLC limits is yours. So as a business owner that has an LLC, if there are claims against your company or there is some kind of legal liability, maybe somebody was injured at your business, your liability is limited to the assets of the business, and your personal assets cannot be accessed. And that is the main advantage of operating as a limited liability company. It also really helps to keep the financial management of your personal life and your business life separated and clean. And there are advantages to that. And as just a final point, they're not complicated. These are things you can set up yourself. They don't cost a lot of money. You fill out a form at the state. You maintain it once a year with the state. So again, a lot of options here, but this is one that we highly recommend for its value and for its ease of use. Okay, let's talk just briefly about building or buying. And the reason I bring this up is sometimes people seem to be encouraged to start a business because they see a business for sale. I've always thought maybe I should take my cake baking into a business and look at that. I just drove by a bakery for sale. I'm going to start looking to buy it. So I like to talk about the kind of advantages and disadvantages here. When you build, you get to start with a clean slate. You choose your name, your brand, location, all of that stuff. Now, you're also starting with a clean slate. So you probably don't have existing customers. It might be harder to get financing if you need it because you don't have a track record that the banks and the credit unions can look at. Buying, advantages and disadvantages are pretty much the mirror image of this. But there are a couple other things that I want to highlight in the disadvantages. The first is the risk of overpaying. Like buying anything used, the seller knows more about it than the buyer. And so it can be difficult to make sure that you know what you're getting and you're paying a fair price. And it can be very difficult financially to recover from overpaying for a business. But the other thing is, the disadvantage is it might not fit your vision. And you run the risk of doing what I really suggested strongly you not do at the very beginning. You think you want to start a business and then boom, you have a business because you bought it. But what if that business that you bought won't help you achieve your objectives? Or it doesn't fit your vision? So even if you're thinking about buying a business and you see an opportunity, I highly recommend you step back and go through the exercise of laying out your objectives and doing a little business modeling from scratch, and then seeing how this business that you're thinking of buying fits that. And maybe it would be a great jumpstart. Or maybe you say, no, that's just not quite what I'm trying to do. One other thing about being a business owner is your own personal readiness. And a couple things. Every business of any size has all these functions. So whether it's a one-person shop or General Motors, there's somebody who runs the place, there's somebody who does the finance, there's somebody who does sales, somebody who does technology. Every business has these functions. But in a small business, owners tend to wear a lot of hats, and you're responsible for a lot of things. And the reason I bring this up is make sure that if you're getting into business because you really like making cherry jam, or you really like baking cakes or being a graphic designer, whatever it is, that you're also willing to do sales, that you're willing to do administration, that you're willing to do finance and accounting, or you're willing to find people to do that for you, and their salaries and the costs associated with that fits into your business model. And then, of course, as I've said several times, it's not complicated, but it's hard work. And so just ask yourself honestly, do you have the right experience? Are you willing to put in the effort? Can you manage your time across these various activities? Do you have some cash reserves? So you do all the planning in the world, and it's important to do the planning, but things tend not to always work out exactly as planned. So make sure that you have a cushion before you go in and start your business. And then, are you willing to ask for help and advice? And I want to close with that. There are some partners that we think every business owner should have. A financial institution, so whether a bank or a credit union, an accountant, an attorney, an insurance agent. And of course, given what we do, we think every business owner should have a mentor. And these are just invaluable resources for their expertise and their advice. So to summarize, as I said, any idea can be a good idea, but planning and modeling is essential. And I strongly encourage you to assess the feasibility of your idea early. Go in eyes wide open about the effort involved, the funding you're going to need, the challenges, and again, lean on your partners. So ask yourself, are you ready? And I'd like to offer up a brief advertisement at the end that SCORE can help if you're interested. As I mentioned, we have mentors who can help you assess your business idea, assist with the feasibility assessment and planning, just be a sounding board, help connect you to other local resources in your community. We also offer workshops and classes that provide in-depth treatment of specific business topics. And we provide tools, templates on business planning, templates on financial spreadsheets, so you don't have to recreate the wheel. And one of the things that Therese will send out to you is a reference guide that will have links to the SCORE website. And those links will connect you to various tools and also show you how you can sign up for mentoring if you're interested. And with that, I'd like to thank you. And Therese, I'd like to thank MSUFCU for the time. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to everybody about starting a business. And we'll ask once again if there are any questions.
Great. Thank you so much. Yes, we did have one question pop, or a couple, one question pop through, going back to the legal structure slide that you were focused on there. So the question is, what would be the benefit of incorporating in Michigan versus Delaware or California if you're a global company? And it looks like they're creating software. They're in that industry.
Yeah, that is both a great question and one I'm not particularly capable of answering. The LLC structure, actually all corporate structures, are state-based. And states have different regulations. You may, if you ever look at the back of one of your credit cards, you'll notice that your credit card company is incorporated in Delaware. And Delaware is a very popular state for financial institutions to be incorporated in because the laws of Delaware are helpful to their business. I don't know the specifics of other types of business and certainly software businesses, but that's one where I would recommend finding an attorney with experience in your industry, because if there are states with particularly advantageous legal structures for example, a software company, that attorney should know those things.
Yeah, and he did mention it as a financial software. So Yeah, so that
financial
would definitely be something they were, yep. So that does help. Thank you. Great. And then we had a couple people asking about how they're going to get the PowerPoint. So yes, once again, I'll be sending out to anyone that attended, and actually even those that signed up but didn't get to attend tonight. I'm going to send out all these resources. We have a great PDF, a dual branded document between MSUFCU and SCORE with all of those quick reference links to all the different things that SCORE can offer you. They just have a plethora of knowledge and people that worked in certain, I was going through the website and just seeing all the different mentors and all their backgrounds. And I just love that, somebody even with a very specific, business play or business idea can find a mentor that may have worked in that, specific industry and really give them the guidance that they need. So yeah, you guys just provide such a awesome resource. So to wrap up here before we stop recording and get into any other questions that have come through, I just want to let everyone know, as if you aren't going to stay for the rest of the Q&A, when you do exit the Zoom, there'll be a short survey that will pop up. So go ahead and fill that out for us just so we can get your feedback on tonight's session and maybe get some ideas of what you want to see in future sessions. So we thank you for your feedback on that. Additionally, we have some upcoming seminar series events actually this week and next week. So we have quite a few to kick off the new year. We know everyone has, is motivated to get things in order this time of year. So we have a great seminar with our partners at Green Path Financial Wellness that will be tomorrow at 6 p.m. And that is going to be about fast tracking your debt payoff. So they also have a lot of good resources there. And then on Thursday, we have a presentation from our partners at Pocket Nest who provide the MSUFCU FinLife app. So if you haven't downloaded that app, go ahead and do that. It's a really great financial tool, budgeting, just so many things in there to help get your financial, new year kicked off in the right direction. So we hope that we will see you at one of those sessions as well. So with that, we'll go ahead and stop recording and get into the rest of the Q&A that have come through. So thanks, everybody.